I didn't know my sister was getting married until someone tagged me in the photos. It was 6:12 a.m. I had just walked in from a 19-hour extraction detail along the coast of Valparaiso. My boots were still damp with salt water and dust, and my shoulders ached from carrying 30 extra pounds of encrypted comms gear uphill in full blackout conditions. I wasn't thinking about home. I never do. But I powered on my personal tablet out of habit. It's the only thing in my apartment that doesn't smell like classified protocol or gun oil. The screen lit up. Tagged, Natalie Hawk and Matthew Broderick. Location, the Grand Elms Estate. The photo loaded in fragments. First the vineyard behind them, strung with fairy lights. Then her silhouette. Then the dress. Cream silk. Gown flared like mist around her feet. Smiling like she'd just stepped out of a wedding magazine. My chest tightened, not because I didn't know she was engaged, but because no one bothered to tell me. I stared at the caption. She said yes. 32 likes, 6 comments, 1 from my mother, a row of heart emojis. My father reposted the same picture with the words, legacy, family, joy. Family? No message, no heads up, no call, not even a group text. I hadn't spoken to Natalie in over a year. I sent her a birthday message last June. She left it on read. Before that, it was 2 years of slowly ghosting, like I was a chapter the family had agreed to skim over, like they'd all quietly decided I didn't photograph well in their new life. I scrolled further. Group shot, vineyard backdrop, bridesmaids, groomsmen, our cousins from Maine. Even Great Aunt Leslie, who can't walk without her orthopedic boots, made it into the photo. But not me. Not even a mention. I let out a breath that came out more like a laugh, that sharp kind of laugh that only ever happens when old wounds rip open like they'd never really healed. I wasn't angry, just stunned. The kind of stunned that comes from being erased not by accident, but by design. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself the last bit of elderflower tonic from an unopened ration pack I'd smuggled home from overseas. It was warm, flat, tasted like dry flowers and forgetting. The silence in the room was thick, not peaceful, just absent, like something had been gone for a long time and I'd gotten so used to it I stopped noticing. Then the knock came, soft, deliberate. I opened the door and found a thin white envelope on the floor, heavy cardstock, silver lining, expensive. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to the Hawk family. No name, no Ms. Vivian, no rank, no title. Inside, Natalie and Matthew cordially invite you to their wedding celebration. Time, date, location, QR code to RSVP. No note, no message, no explanation. Just like that, I was expected to show up. Not as a sister, not even as a guest of honor. Just as a placeholder in a category. My tablet buzzed again. A message from my mother. If you come, please wear beige or gray, nothing flashy. No greeting. No, we're happy you got the invite. Just a warning. A subtle way of saying, don't make a scene. Don't be noticed. I stood there barefoot in a silent apartment filled with equipment meant for war, reading a message that hurt more than a sniper's clean shot to the shoulder. Because it wasn't just a dress code, it was a reminder. In this family, I had become the thing you hide. I should have thrown it out. Instead, I folded the invite neatly, slipped it into the front pocket of my travel duffel, and zipped it shut. Not for them, but for me. Because I've spent too many years playing dead so other people could look alive. And maybe, just maybe, this time the story doesn't end in silence. Maybe it ends the way it should, with the truth, front and center. This isn't just a wedding, it's a battlefield, a cover-up, a final push against the people who decided I didn't matter. And maybe, just maybe, this time it becomes a revenge story worth telling. I arrived an hour early, not because I was eager, but because I didn't trust a single name on that guest list. The Elms estate was every bit as curated and polished as I expected. Ivory stone columns, gold letter signage, staff in matching black vests and tight smiles. The kind of place my mother would have described as just tasteful enough for legacy. I parked at the far end of the gravel loop, the kind of spot you pick when you know you'll be leaving before dessert. My outfit matched the request. Slate gray blazer, no medals, no patches, no shine. My boots were polished, but understated. My hair slicked back into a low ponytail. Minimal makeup, just enough to look alive. A wedding staffer stood at a silver podium under a crystal chandelier. She didn't even look up when she said, "Name? Vivian Hawk." Her fingers hesitated over the screen. She scrolled again, then frowned. "I don't see a Vivian Hawk on the list." I didn't blink. "I'm the bride's sister." A beat. Then the other staffer whispered something into her earpiece. The first one gave a quick smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Please, wait here a moment." Seconds later, a woman in a darker suit appeared, clipboard in hand. She didn't apologize, didn't even fake a welcome. She just said, "Right this way. We've arranged a spot for you." I followed her past the main reception space, past the photo wall filled with family pictures, none of which included me, and into a side corridor near the exit. There, in a row of beige folding chairs, was a small alcove labeled overflow seating. I stared at the sign, overflow, like I was luggage that didn't quite fit in the cabin. I sat down, adjusted my coat, glanced around. The only person I recognized in the row was my great-aunt Carol, who gave me a polite half nod and then went back to scrolling through her phone. From here, I could just barely hear the string quartet warming up in the ballroom. I wasn't meant to be part of this. I was meant to be adjacent to it. Quiet, gray, out of frame. 15 minutes later, my mother walked in like she owned the air. Cream suit, pearls, hair in a textbook French twist. She was flanked by two women from her bridge club, laughing softly in that high society whisper laugh that only people who've never had to work use. She saw me, paused, then walked over. "Vivian?" she said, her voice smooth but cool. "You came." "I did." She looked me over, head to toe. "Well, thank you for dressing appropriately." That was it. No hug. No, "I missed you." No, "How have you been?" Just a visual inspection and a sigh of relief that I hadn't embarrassed her with my existence. A few minutes later, my father entered. Gray suit, navy tie, speaking to a groomsman I didn't know. He saw me, hesitated, gave a quick nod, then kept walking, like he'd just passed a waiter or a dusty shelf. And here's the part I didn't expect. It didn't hurt like it used to. It just confirmed what I already knew. They didn't forget me. They erased me. That's different. One is neglect, the other is a choice. And let me ask you something. Have you ever shown up somewhere fully knowing you weren't wanted, but you still did it anyway? Because deep down, some part of you refused to make it that easy for them? If you've been there, God, I hope you haven't, but if you have, drop a comment. Tell me. I want to know how many of us there are. Because standing there in that hallway, in that silent little corner of someone else's perfect day, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I was just the only one still willing to name it. Natalie appeared 10 minutes before the ceremony. Ivory gown, soft curls, perfect makeup. She looked stunning. She swept past the alcove where I sat, bridesmaids trailing behind her like petals. Her eyes scanned the row. They landed on me. Held for maybe half a second, then moved on. No smile, no pause, no hi, no glad you came. Just nothing. She didn't see me. Not because she didn't recognize me, but because that's the role I've been assigned. The silent sister, the ghost. And I played it well for a long time, but not today. Today, I came prepared. There was something in the air, a signal, a frequency shift I could feel in my chest, like an old injury flaring up before a storm. Something was off. And I wasn't just here for a seat in the shadows. I was here because I had a hunch. And if I was right, if my instincts were still sharp after all this time, then this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a smokescreen. And beneath all the cream and silk and champagne, there was a lie. The first red flag came from the audio rig. I'd positioned myself near the back corner of the reception room, close enough to watch the vendors without being noticed. One of the AV techs was fiddling with the mic stand, swapping out what looked like a standard wireless capsule, except it wasn't standard. The casing was too slick, too customized. I'd seen that hardware before, buried in covert relay nodes during field extractions, not the kind of thing you casually plug into a wedding microphone. I waited until the tech walked off, then moved in. From my clutch, I slid out a scanner the size of a lipstick tube. Silent. Black matte. Military grade. One quick swipe across the mic base and the scanner buzzed. Soft, but steady. Active transmission. Frequencies bouncing through a layered prox loop. Not civilian grade, not commercial. Someone was funneling data out of this wedding. I tapped my earpiece. "Aaron, you picking this up?" His voice crackled through. "Yeah, strong signal. Mid-band frequency. Military mimic, but sloppy. It's broadcasting." "From where?" "That mic, and get this, the bride." I froze. "What about the bride?" "Viv, her dress is embedded." The world slowed. That wasn't an accident. That was surgical. I left the reception hall like I belonged there. Calm, controlled. No one stopped me. No one asked questions. It's amazing how invisible you become when you wear gray and move with purpose. I found the bridal suite on the second floor, knocked once, then stepped inside. Natalie stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her veil. Her expression in the reflection flickered, but she didn't turn around. "You're not supposed to be in here," she said. I shut the door behind me. "You weren't supposed to be broadcasting secure intel through your dress," I replied. Her posture stiffened. "What are you talking about?" I held up the scanner. Let the red light blink once. "There's a transmitter sewn into the hem, passive relay. Mid-grade encryption. Someone gave you that gown for a reason." She spun around. "You think I'd do that? Me?" "I think someone wanted you to carry it. I think they knew you'd wear it. And I think you didn't ask questions." Silence. Then quietly she said, "It was a gift from one of Matt's clients. Said it was custom, a one-of-a-kind. Did you check the label?" She shook her head. I stepped closer. "Let me see the hem." "No. Natalie." I said no. She clutched the fabric like I'd just asked to cut it off her. "This is my wedding," she snapped. "Not a mission, not your interrogation room. Just once, could you not turn everything into an operation?" I held her gaze, and then she said it. "Just once. I wanted a day that wasn't about you." I didn't flinch, not this time. "I didn't plant it," I said evenly. "But it's there, and it's active, which means someone used you to carry it." Her lips parted. Her hands loosened their grip on the gown. "You think I knew?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because I saw the truth flash in her eyes before she buried it. She knew. She didn't know the tech, but she knew something wasn't right, and she wore it anyway. She backed toward the vanity. "You always think I need saving." "No," I said. "I think you made a choice." Her face twisted. "It's always the same with you. You walk in like you're better. Like we're all beneath you. You left, Viv. You disappeared, and you only ever come back when you want to make a scene." "You're right," I said quietly. "I left, but only after Mom handed me the pen and told me to sign the damn confession so the family could move on." She froze. "You think I forgot?" I added. "That Dad stood there and said, 'Vivian, don't drag the family through this. Take the fall. We'll fix it later.' But they never did." Her voice came out small. "They were scared." "No," I said. "They were willing to burn me to protect a last name." She looked away. "You knew I wasn't invited," I continued. "You knew what that message meant when she said, 'wear gray.' You knew I'd be sat in the overflow row. You knew I wasn't supposed to exist today." She sat down slowly, the silk of her dress pooling around her. "I just didn't want you to ruin it," she whispered. "I thought if you showed up, it'd turn into another scene, another fight." I didn't want people looking at you and asking questions. I stared at her. You mean you didn't want them remembering me at all? She didn't answer. And that silence, God, that silence hurt more than anything. It wasn't an accident. It was a decision. They hadn't forgotten me. They wanted me gone. The ballroom lights dimmed. String quartet faded into a soft, ceremonial hush. Guests shuffled into place, whispers folding into reverence, the kind of quiet people hold in churches and award ceremonies when they want to look like good people in good lighting. I stood in the back, near the edge of the marble entryway, spine straight, hands clasped. I wasn't part of the procession. I wasn't part of anything, really. Not until he stood. Aaron. Third row, left side, between two diplomats and a retired Navy commander. He rose slowly, deliberately, and turned to face me. His hand came up in a crisp salute. "Major General Vivian Hawke, ma'am." The air snapped. Every head turned. Gasps broke through the silence like glass shattering in sequence. The officiant blinked. Someone dropped a champagne flute. A child whispered, "Who is that?" I didn't move. I let the moment stretch. Because for the first time in years, they were looking at me. Not around me. Not through me. At me. Aaron dropped his salute, stepped aside, and let the silence do what silence does best when it's earned. Cut deep. My mother's face paled. My father went rigid, lips pressed tight. Natalie looked like she'd seen a ghost. I took one step forward. Then another. Boots echoed against marble. I didn't walk fast. I didn't strut. I just walked like someone who'd carried lives across war zones and now, finally, was carrying her own. When I reached the center of the ballroom, I didn't ask for a mic. I didn't need one. I lifted my hand. A small black device blinked in my palm. "Let's watch something together," I said, voice steady, unedited. Behind me, the projector flickered to life. First, a battlefield. Gray-blue night vision. Concrete crumbling, smoke everywhere. Then, comms feed. My voice. Urgent, measured. Evac route compromised. We're moving. Civilian presence confirmed. Then another voice. Read. Negative. Hold position. Wait for drone clearance. The screen split. Video on one side, comm logs on the other. Then came the sound that's haunted me for years. Children screaming inside a burning building, and my voice again. "I'm not waiting. We move now." Cut 2. Helmet cam footage. Me dragging a boy, no older than 6, through rubble. Gunfire behind us, Reed's voice still yelling in my earpiece, and then silence. I turned toward the crowd. No one spoke. No one sipped their drinks. Every phone was down. Every mouth was still. "The report you read," I said, "if you even saw it, was redacted. Altered. I was blamed. I was told to sign off quietly, to protect the family name, and I did, for a while." I held up the second device. It played a recording. Carolyn Hawke, my mother's voice, calm and deliberate. "Just make sure the final report doesn't connect back to our family. Vivian is complicated, you understand." A sharp inhale from somewhere near the floral arch. Next file. Douglas Hawke, my father. "Vivian's signature will close the case. It's cleaner that way. We all move on." I looked at them both. "I was never the problem," I said. "I was the cleanup crew for a mess you all helped create." I turned back to the crowd. "And Natalie," she flinched, "knew the dress had tech. She wore it anyway, because it was easier to let me disappear than risk people asking why I wasn't in the pictures." No one interrupted. Even Reed, seated on the edge near the bar, didn't move. His jaw was tight, his eyes scanning. He was calculating. Good. Let him. Because this wasn't just a truth bomb. This was unburying a body they'd all helped put in the ground. And I wasn't the one being buried anymore. The room didn't move for 5 full seconds. Then, like a slow-moving tide, the crowd began to shift. Eyes darted between the screen, me, and my family, each face trapped between disbelief and dawning clarity. The officiant cleared his throat, visibly shaken. He looked like he wanted to resume the ceremony, but had absolutely no idea how. That's when Aaron stepped forward again. This time, he didn't salute. He reached into the inside pocket of his suit and pulled out a slim leather folder. He handed it to the venue's head of security, who was already inching toward Reed. "Official documentation," Aaron said. "This is a cease and detain order issued under federal jurisdiction." Gasps rippled through the room. Reed, ever the operator, held his ground. "This is a private event," he barked, stepping forward. "You're out of line." "No," I said, my voice calm but louder now. "You are." Reed turned toward me, jaw tight. "You don't know what you're doing, Vivian." "I do," I replied. "For the first time in years, I actually do." His mouth opened to speak, but before he could spit out whatever carefully rehearsed line he'd been preparing, the projector blinked again. A new video. A helmet cam recording, time-stamped from the same day in Syria. But this time, it wasn't just me. It was Reed. His voice came through clearly over the comms. "If it goes south, Hawk takes the fall. Let her signature close it." That was the final blow. My father, standing stiff as a statue near the front row, lowered his head. My mother turned sharply, as if looking for someone to tell her this was all a hoax. But no one came, because the proof was right there. And then, of all people, it was Natalie who moved. She stepped forward, veil off, face bare, mascara beginning to smudge under the heat of too many stares. She walked, slowly, deliberately, across the marble floor until she reached the side of the platform. Then she turned toward the crowd. "She's in the family photo," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "This time, she's in it." You could hear a pin drop. The photographer, frozen near the floral arch, blinked and adjusted her camera. "She's in it," Natalie repeated. "Next to me." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There was no apology, no dramatic reconciliation, just a sentence. Simple, firm, unexpected. And somehow it meant more than I thought it would. Then, from the back of the room, came another voice. Low, commanding, familiar. "I second that." All heads turned. A man in a dark uniform stepped into the aisle, square-shouldered, silver service bar on his chest. He gave a sharp nod. "Major General Hawk, he said. "Ma'am." And then, like dominoes falling, others followed. One by one, from scattered seats across the ballroom, veterans stood, men and women I'd trained with, deployed beside, led, saved. And they didn't clap. They saluted, one after another, quiet, formals, unmistakable. In that moment, the entire room shifted, not because of volume, but because the silence was no longer shaped by shame. It was shaped by respect. My mother took a step back. Her eyes were glassy, her lips parted. She didn't speak. My father reached for the back of a chair to steady himself. Reed, for once, was speechless. And then the screen changed again. This time it wasn't footage. It was a list, names, dates, codes, proof of every suppression order, every false report. And at the bottom, my original commendation, signed and time-stamped before it was erased. The lights came up. No music, no flowers, just the buzz of something uncontainable. Truth. A reporter in the crowd, clearly someone's plus one, pulled out her phone and began recording. Her mic was still live. "Major General," she called, "do you have a comment on what just happened?" I turned toward her. "Not yet," I said, "but you will." Aaron appeared at my side. He handed me a small velvet box, the same one that had sat unopened for years. I opened it. Inside was the medal I was promised 8 years ago, the one they said had been lost in audit, the one I'd earned the night Reed tried to bury my name. I pinned it to my jacket. Not for them, for me. For every moment I stayed silent while they built a world without me. Then I stepped off the platform, not as a footnote, not as the ghost in the back row, but as the woman they had tried to erase and failed. The ballroom was quiet now. Not from discomfort, but because everything fake had finally been stripped away. Chandeliers glowed low and steady as if dimmed by truth. The music had stopped and no one seemed in a hurry to bring it back. Outside, the evening air hung thick with that post-storm calm. the kind you feel in your chest before you even step out the door. I stood near the floral arch, jacket still pinned with the metal. It felt heavier than I remembered. Or maybe I just finally had the weight to match it. Aaron stood a few feet behind me, quietly keeping his eye on the room. Natalie was off to the side with a small group of bridesmaids. They weren't laughing anymore, just standing in a tight knot, heads lowered, voices hushed. My parents hadn't left. They lingered near the back, in that awkward limbo between stunned and exposed. My mother hadn't said a word since the last file played. My father had sat down. He hadn't looked up since. I wasn't waiting for them to speak. For once, their silence wasn't a weapon. It was surrender. Then I heard it, the faint click of a camera shutter. The photographer, same woman who'd shot every curated moment today, stood near the dance floor. She gave me a cautious look, then turned to Natalie. "Do you want a family photo?" she asked gently. I didn't expect anything, but Natalie glanced at me, took a breath, and said, "She's in this one. Vivian stands next to me." It wasn't theatrical, it wasn't grand, but it was public, and it was clear. She stepped forward, reached out her hand, and, without forcing it, waited. I didn't hesitate. I walked toward her, the hush stretching as I crossed the room. When I reached her, she gave me a small, tired nod. I returned it. We turned toward the lens. Mom and Dad stepped in, not because they wanted to, but because not doing so now would have said everything. Their expressions were tight, unreadable. But for the first time in years, they weren't standing in front of me. They were standing beside me. The shutter clicked, a flash, and just like that, I was in the photo, this time in the center. Not because I asked, not because I fought for it, but because I belonged in it. Always had. No one cheered, no one clapped, but it didn't matter, because that picture, however awkward, was no longer curated. It was honest, and sometimes that's more powerful than perfect. Afterward, I stepped outside into the courtyard. The string lights overhead swayed gently in the breeze. The scent of warm vanilla and grass lingered from the catered desserts no one had touched. Natalie joined me. We stood in silence for a while, then she said, "I didn't know everything. Not the recordings, not what Dad signed." I didn't answer. "I just thought," she trailed off, "if I kept my distance, the mess wouldn't reach me." I looked at her. "You were wrong." She nodded once. "Yeah, I know that now." Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "It's from Uncle Mason. He couldn't come, but he sent this for you." I opened it. Inside was a photo, faded, creased, from years ago. Me in uniform holding a child I'd pulled from rubble. Behind me, a dust-covered reed, back turned. Scrawled beneath it, "Truth doesn't disappear just because people pretend it didn't happen." I exhaled, the lump in my throat finally breaking loose. Natalie leaned against the railing. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I'm not even sure I would." I looked at her. "I'm not here for forgiveness. I'm here because I'm done hiding." She gave me a small smile. "Still, I'm glad you showed up." So was I, but I didn't say it out loud. The next morning, the kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee, like it used to. Before deployments and disgrace and erasure, the marble island gleamed. My mother poured coffee in silence, added cream without asking. My father sliced toast with robotic precision. Natalie's niece, Jenna, skipped in from the living room, holding something in her hand. A daisy pin, fabric, stitched with tiny pearls. She reached up and handed it to me. My dad said, "You're the reason he came home." I crouched slowly, pinned the daisy to my jacket. "Then your dad's a good man," I said. She smiled wide and genuine, then darted away like light. Behind me, my mother set down a fresh cinnamon roll without a word. Her hand brushed my sleeve for half a second longer than necessary. I didn't pull away, not because everything was fixed, but because maybe, just maybe, something true had finally started. Weeks later, I stood in the rotunda at the Federal Archives. The room was quiet. Brass plaques lined the walls, glinting in morning light. I stepped to the podium and adjusted the mic. My name is Major General Vivian Hawk, and and I said, I was told once that silence protects missions, but sometimes it only protects lies. I reached into my coat, pulled out the medal. I never needed this to know who I am, but I brought it because people deserve to remember. Behind me, the projection screen lit up, not just with my name, but with every name they'd tried to bury alongside mine. This time, they didn't succeed. If you've ever been told to stay quiet to keep the peace, if you've ever been erased just to make others more comfortable, I see you. And this story is for you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been pushed out of the picture even when you knew you belonged in it? Drop a 1 if you felt that sting. Drop a 2 if you've taken your place back. And if this hits something real, hit like, hit subscribe. There are more stories where people take back their names because silence doesn't keep you safe. It just makes their lies louder. Let's change that together.